Hello, everyone. Welcome to a workshop meeting of the Orangetown Town Board. If the gentleman in the front could please tone it down a notch. That's Jeff Bensick, our finance director. He's a little loud sometimes, folks. Would the town clerk please call the roll?
Valentine.
Here.
Tom Tiffany. Here. Dennis Troy.
Present.
Chris Day.
Present. Did we miss one? Did you call Batari or no?
Sorry, Jerry Batari.
Okay. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we have a relatively brief meeting in terms of agenda items today. First, a few announcements. The Orangetown Historical Museum and Archives will be having its annual holiday show. That'll be every Sunday between now and Christmas from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. There'll be 19th and 20th century American toys, and Santa will be on hand to greet children and adults as well. If you still would like to meet Santa, you're welcome to go alone. Friday, December 7th, this Friday at 7 p.m. is Pearl River Rotary's Share Christmas event over in Braunsdorf Park in Pearl River. That's, again, starts at 7 o'clock, and I hear Santa's going to be there as well. He gets around this time of year. Saturday, December 8th at 6 p.m., the Orangeburg Volunteer Fire Department has their annual holiday parade. There's some stuff going on site at the fire department, and also they proceed around Orangeburg, down Leicester, up Orangeburg Road and everything. Welcome. It's a great event, and I recommend you guys taking a look. And Sunday, December 9th is our own Town of Orangetown 27th Anniversary Santa Claus 5K Run at Veterans Memorial Park. There are kids' races at 10 a.m. and a Santa 5K at 10:30 a.m. I'm not sure if you're required to dress in Christmas garb to run it. I don't think so, but it's encouraged if you want to dress festively for the 5K. All right. Any other events that the folks on the board here are aware of that are not on this list? Because there's a lot this time of year. Dennis, you tracking any other holiday events that I didn't talk about?
Share Christmas is this Friday?
That's this Friday, yep. Yep. And I don't think, Paul, you got anything you're tracking?
No.
South Orangetown had its tree lighting this past weekend, which was great. Really well attended for the first time.
And the Lions Club had their tree.
They did,
More lighting.
yes. And I think Piermont just lighted theirs today as well, but Pearl River too, yes. All right, great. So moving on, we have a presentation regarding a potential new town hall based on the designs that have been put forward in the past. We'll discuss that as a board for a bit, and then we'll move on to, again, a relatively short agenda item. I think there's only one thing we're voting on because of time sensitivity, or two, and then, actually, no, you said it's going to be one because the map's not ready. One, and then the rest is all being workshopped. So, you can see in the screen next to you or on TV if you're looking at it, the Orangetown Town Hall. This process had begun, I think it was 2017 or 2016, or end of 2016, of getting design options. This is the wrong remote. That's the timer remote. This is the one. There we go. So the current town hall was constructed back in the early 60s. There really hasn't been any updates done to it since then in terms of structural. There was about $100 worth of paint put in this room a few months back, but I don't think that helped. The conditions and the age of the structure led the town board to, under the previous supervisor, contract for the presentation and analysis of various options to replace or renovate this town hall. And when we talk about town hall, we're talking about the portion south of the police department. That's a new structure. The old police department is actually underneath us in this town hall. That was already moved out of. So those options were presented to the board, again, last year before I took office. There were prices ranging from about $13 million to over $20 million. The board generally settled on what was called then option 7, was the best combination of function and cost. And the contracted architect, which is the Musial Group, completed the preliminary design work for that option, and that we received in the last couple months, and will be presented here today for the public to see what came forward from that, and then we can discuss our next steps and the costs and everything. This is the current situation at Town Hall. I'm sure Eric's not going to be very happy about seeing it, but the reality is that things are not in great shape because of the age of the structure, and we're doing our best to keep up with it. At the bottom left, you can see the cracked windows and the peeling off concrete facade, and also the mosaic, which was, I'm sure, a lovely design note in 1961, but not exactly in design now. And then on the other side, the facade falling off, and that wood you see is actually been constructed to protect the natural gas line from being hit by the falling concrete. That is from there to make sure that nothing goes boom. Further, you see the front entrance, or it's actually the side entrance if you think of the town hall, which is the main part to this town hall. This side is being held up by some concrete forms. That was an issue where that was collapsing. Bottom, you can see the water feature that was in my office. It's just one example of the many water issues we've had with the roof as it's become more patched than roof. You can see in here, this is the foundation at different points. Shifting and settling of the building is causing gaps to form. Obviously, these can be covered. These are covered up, but there's signs of the thing settling and not being structurally in terms of needing a lot of work to make it last longer. This is also in the old police department downstairs. You can see there's some moisture issues in the paint there that's causing it to detach from the concrete. There's general, issues with the wiring, with the insulation, tile, and this is also down there as well. If you can see over here, the shifting of the foundation away from the structure. There's a gap through there to the exterior. Again, the moisture issue is causing some peeling of the paint on the concrete here. This is just consistent throughout the building. So
Isn't that a significant mold issue?
it's a risk of mold. We haven't tested for mold, but there's a risk when you have that much moisture and you have openings to the exterior on a partially underground area. We don't have any evidence that there is any, but obviously it's a concern that this sort of thing, if left, could get like that. So to the plan, that's where we are now. The plan that was accepted and then moved forward with, at least for the point of getting initial design work, calls for a new 2-story structure plus a basement, so 3 total floors, which would be across from the current police station entrance, and the 2 would be connected into with an atrium into one contiguous space. So basically where people now park and / there's flagpoles would become a building, and then once complete, everyone in this building and everyone in Greenbush, which is where our building department is, and they share space with the Orangeburg Library, though we own the building, would move into the new structure into one spot as opposed to 2 different locations. This town hall that we're sitting in right now would be destroyed, and in the plan you'll see it becomes a pedestrian plaza and some more parking, because we're going to be losing some parking with this new structure. And then the building on Greenbush can be sold for another use, whether it's to the library or something else, but we won't need it anymore. And that building itself, though it's not documented photos, also is in a state of needing a lot of work. Moving on, you can see the floor plan for the new building. Now, on this side here is the police station building, which stays. So really, it's kind of just as is. This is the basement. In here, you can see you've got IT down here, restrooms, union offices, a lot of empty storage / flex space that can be used for records, but as we reduce the amount of records, we don't know where we're going in the next 40, 50 years of which this will be built for. We want to make sure there's an ability to have some flexible space for folks in the future to make use of as see fit. But mostly the plan right now is shared storage between the different departments of files in the basement, along with IT and a union office and restrooms. So IT will put, we'll put a very small window in for you so you can get a little bit of sunlight, and that's it. Now, it's a little hard to see on the screen here, but it's all available on the website in high-res form. This is the entrance as you come in. So this is where we're sitting right now, where this green dot is. This is kind of where we are right now. This comes down, becomes a pedestrian plaza, and you'd walk in over here. This is where the new town board meeting room would be, with a executive session breakout room behind it, elevated stage platform connecting to the clerk's office, and that all becomes one nice flowing space there. This is the open atrium, where you'd have a step up / ramp up to the plaza that's currently in front of the current clerk's office and between the police station. What is now the clerk's office becomes Justice Court, because Justice Court gets cut off back here now, so they rotate around. It gets connected back in behind the chambers there for the judges. This stage is all covered atrium. It's all indoors, but it's a big open space, which you'll see better in the renderings. On this side here becomes the building department, and the assessor and the fire inspectors are all in this area here, along with a separate meeting room for more of a smaller, like planning board type thing, so not everyone has to get into the really big room. with table, chairs. It could be used for flexible space as well. There's different rooms for people to be able to view plans that are private. There's also open windows. All these things flow into each other for a reason, because you'll see that the intent is to allow for a more interconnected workspace, to allow for share positions in the future, letting people be able to a more modern non-cellular office that people can all sort of share a bullpen area, as opposed to having to go from section to section to section, and thereby having minimum manning requirements that are beyond what I'm sure will be needed in the next 40 years. Going upstairs, then, this would just be on the only second floor, so you don't see a town hall, a police station side here, because this sticks up higher, is the supervisor's office, which has a stairwell down to this town board meeting room, along with finance, all interconnected into a bullpen here, with a breakout conference room, another conference room for the law department, which connects in also to the supervisor. So this all flows, and this is the kind of the public hallway / railing that overlooks the atrium here. And then HR, or personnel, is in the legal area, so there's a separate room for the director of personnel, but that flows into the open area for attorney. And you have restrooms here. Up here also, it's kind of a cool feature, is there's a outdoor atrium garden where people be able to eat their lunches. There's a break room here designed to allow the employees to have some space to do that, which we don't really have right now. And this will have a view of the trees over. This is the trees and parking lot back over here towards the Palisades Parkway. Going then to the good visual one that everyone can really process. Again, we're kind of here-ish right now in Town Hall, and this comes down, and then you have, this is all new structure, and this is new facade on the old structure as you walk into the atrium here. So this is the back of the town board meeting room as proposed by the Musial Group. And then you have the second floor sticking up here with the glass atrium there, and behind the building there will become the parking lot, and there'll be some parking obviously over here to make sure we have the same number of spaces. And the interior, this gives you a view of what the atrium would look like. This is kind of viewing from where the supervisor's office was in that drawing, looking out over the atrium. So this would be the police department. This is the hallway here. And you could see people, or do I have it backwards? No, that's correct. So this is the back entrance, if you will. And so building department will be underneath there. You could see tables and stuff so people can sit in the open area, have a community meeting space, go over documents together, but in a more relaxed setting as opposed to in a separate room. And it's just, a nice, clean, very bright, this all glass concept. So moving on to the cost, which is obviously very important. Per the Musial Group study, the cost of this building would be approximately $13.5 million. That does not include the demo of this structure that we're sitting in right now. So we're going to figure it's a little more than that, obviously, if you have to destroy an entire building. In those things, they did analyze the cost of upgrading this current building to bring it up to modern standards. That cost was just over $13 million, so very close in cost to the whole new wing that brings everyone into one spot, which is an important thing when it comes to the cost because it allows us to consolidate our footprint. So the town will be able to continue to occupy this town hall, well building, and also Greenbush Road, so we won't have the cost in some of the other plans of renting space for people in offices, which we don't need because as soon as it's done, we move out and then they take this down. It doesn't have to be put into temporary office space. We would have to have some sort of agreement with the nearby lot for some parking during construction, but that's probably a very minor issue with the fire department and Pro Plaza right there. Current town hall, again, is not in a condition in its current state to be used beyond the next few years without repairs. And I'm not talking about the $13 million upgrade, I mean just repairs and fixes. The cost of servicing the debt, and we'll get to the next more in depth on this on the next slide, on bonding those repairs over 20 years, which is the most you can bond a repair like that for in a building like this, really 15, but you could stretch to 20. The cost of servicing debt would equal or exceed the cost of servicing the $10 million worth of bonded debt on a new town hall. So if we bond 10 of 13.5 to 15 million over 40 years, which you can do on a new structure, the cost of that bonded debt would be, for the first 20 years of it, slightly more or equal to, depending on what the costs end up being, the cost of fixing everything that needs to be fixed to keep this going for another 20 years. That remaining cost, let's call it under 5 million, so somewhere to 15 million total, will be paid for with cash to close the gap. This is a more detailed cost comparison. Town board, each of you guys have the actual numbers that went to this. Jeff and Eric went through and pulled out the specific things that need to be repaired and gave high-end and low-end cost estimates for each item. They also did it for the new side of Town Hall, the police department, but we don't have that in here because we'd still have to do that anyway, so that's not in here in terms of giving your numbers. So again, it's 20 years bonding this versus 40 years of bonding 10 million. Your high end of cost for repairing both Greenbush and the old town hall is 6.6 million, and the low end is 4 million. That's based on just their analysis of what things cost to fix. Bonding that annually comes to 450 or 272. Somewhere in that range is the annual bonded cost of that. The annual cost of a new town hall bond, 10 million over 40, is 375. This is at current rates. Rates will go up and are going up as we speak. Additionally, and this is not an aggressive utility savings, this is really based just on turning off Greenbush because we won't be paying for the utilities on it anymore. We save another $60,000 a year in utilities, probably a lot more. The windows in our building right now are single pane glass, and they crack if you look at them. I feel a nice stiff breeze in my office every day, which is nice. So there'll probably be more savings. That's a conservative savings on just turning off Greenbush. So the net increase in cost for the town to bond that 10 million on an operational basis year to year for the first 20 years is 16,000 more for the town hall on the high end and 159,000 on the low end. So you're actually you're going to be, about breaking even on this situation here to be able to either fix everything or build the whole new one that actually is new.
But there's another 20 years on that bond.
There is another 20, and that's what the next thing I was going to say. So this is the first 20 years. So the costs continue for 20 more years at that level, but they will be baked in, obviously. We will have to bake in this cost increase for 20 years worth of budgeting, or we have to bake it in for 40 years worth of budgeting. But it's going to create space in the budget for that approximate amount anyway, essentially. That's what we need in the next 5 years, yeah.
Not what we're gonna need for the next 35 years after that, so those costs are gonna be significantly higher, Tom.
Right. This is what they say we need now or in the next 5 years, so that can only theoretically go up from
You're
there.
not gonna sell me on it tonight, Jeff.
No,
Sold
we're
on
not.
me.
We're just trying to talk it through anyway. But
Nah, I know what you're trying to
so again, that doesn't account for any personnel savings from shared spaces, et cetera. If we're able to, not have to fill the same number of spots for different positions, and that's just to address existing conditions. So this is what we could do. In order to proceed, the town board would need to issue the full design and engineering RFP. What the board did prior to my taking office was issue the initial design proposal, which is what you just saw, and the analysis of options. So that contract's complete. We'll workshop and discuss that today, and we can, if we choose to, vote on it at the next town board meeting, or we can push it to January. It depends how the discussion goes. This would then use, the RFP as written, would use the initial design work that was done by the Mutual Group as the basis for a full architectural design services proposal. And then once we select an architect, plans, et cetera, it's the same process we talked about for the community center. The RFP is issued, interview people for the RFP proposals, select one of them. They then do the complete plans and engineering, then issue an RFP for construction. That's responded to, then you select the builder. So based on what the Mutual Group said, we're talking about 2 to 3 years from the selection of a contractor to build the actual structure for time of construction. If we move with, we'll call it due speed, if we just start moving now-ish, we're probably looking about 4 years from the day we start moving-ish to keep going and get this all wrapped up. So it's a long process. And, basically my thought process is this. We have a thing we're planning at the community center. We have a thing that something needs to be fixed at the town hall. The process on both ones right now could be paused at any time. It's not until we start issuing construction RFPs and accepting them and getting those proposals locked in that we become at a point where we can't hit pause on anything. But if we get these things moving forward, when we know we're 100% ready to execute on the build, we will have done all the work on the design as opposed to waiting another 6 months to a year to get to the point where we're digging a hole in the ground on a project like this. Because of the delay on it and the fact that every year we have more things that have to get fixed, I think it makes sense to start the process rolling as we have been, as the board did last year, getting the initial designs through. Just keep that moving forward because at some point something has to be done, I think. Well, something has to be done whether it's a new town hall or fixing everything in this one, just because it's the state of the building. And this allows us to start moving in that direction. So I'll open the floor up to the town board, any thoughts you have on the concept before we move on to the workshop agenda. Dennis?
I've been on the town board the longest. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody today and I said, we passed a property maintenance law, I don't know, it was back, I don't know, it could be 15 years ago. And I used to tell Supervisor Tom Kleiner that we ourselves should be penalized for poor property maintenance for this building, and this is going back. There was one day in the corner of the building where one of the concrete abutments broke off. The steel beam bent and ended up bending one of the gas pipes there. Now, the gas pipe was right where our law department was. We would have lost our law department. Teresa, you would have been gone. You know, it's like, last week, I went to a swearing in of somebody who went to school with my daughter. She got sworn in as a town councilwoman in Mawa. This is like a third world country. This town hall, compared to other towns, whether you go to Clarkstown or what, you know, Ramapo, it's not that we want to be them, but at the same time, this part of the building is a disgrace. Somewhere along the line, somebody decided to do the police department and not do here. If I was supervisor, I would have taken care of this side of the building, then worried about the police department. You know, it's just absolutely incredible. This is going on for years. I was glad when we hired the Museo Group. I think what Chris is proposing, I support 100% to move ahead now, because it's long overdue. The Greenbush building, you go down to the Greenbush building, I always kept saying that the building department there is going to end up down in the basement someday with all the paper it has. And the library side of the building's all right. Our side of the building is, again, a disgrace. We need to move forward on this. We do. And I think it's a wise use of the town's money. I really believe that. I support it 100%.
I agree 100% with Dennis. I was, in the beginning, pushing for the new town hall. The Museo Group was a good choice. I liked the design. We discussed that at length while picking that design. And this town hall is just a liability waiting to happen. Eventually, someone's going to get hurt from the stairs that are falling apart or all the materials that are used in this old type of construction or in the Greenbush building. It's only a matter of time, and we have to protect the town and the residents, and the only way to do that is to replace this town hall. It's well past due. They definitely got their money's worth out of this, being built in 1961, but it's time to put this out to pasture and get a new town hall and bring us up to date. It's almost an embarrassment coming into this building when you come up the front steps and you see the whole facade falling off of it. So it's time. And I agree also, we should move ahead at least to the design stage and get that rolling so we can make educated decisions on how to fund it and everything else.
Tom, you have anything?
Nope.
All right.
I'm not sold. And just the word of advice, you just basically told everyone we have notice of all these defective conditions, so if anyone falls, we're going to lose that lawsuit. Thanks, guys.
You're going to hand out your business cards for
We're
legal?
trying to keep you in business, Tom.
You just put on, oh, yeah.
We have,
Rob will tell you.
I want to point out, I will point out,
I don't think it's a hidden,
a lot of the stuff,
no.
a lot of the stuff, just for the public's, to the point,
Rob's laughing because he knows I'm 100%
the overwhelming majority of the photos we showed, to be clear, are not open to the public. It's like, we're not, like, those areas, if anyone's in there, they're in trouble, not us. But you're right, yeah. But I just want to make that clear for the record, that those really bad stuff is blocked off right now. That is not, that's the old police department downstairs. So you're right, though. We will have to smooth down some cracks, I think, and refill them based on the conversation tonight. All right, moving on to a very, very short agenda, thankfully. We have, the first thing was going to be voting, but the map's not ready, right?
Right, it's just on, so I guess Jane may present it and then
Okay, so-
vote next week, because it's really not ready.
Jane, do you have anything to show us for the new zoning map? This is to correct all those issues. One, we changed some and moved some lines, and two, we had that error that caused half of a neighborhood to come out. Oh, yeah, sorry, let's get the vote done on the other one first, then we'll come back to you, Jane, while you're getting set up. The next one is, we received a grant, we already bonded for the chlorine, the mitigation for the chlorine for Demi, to dechlorinate the effluent, and we got a grant now to reduce the cost up to $193,000, so we have to accept it because it's due tomorrow to get the signing.
Yeah, this is a DEC mandate. that
Yes,
have
we were
no
forced
choice
to do
on.
it.
Thank God for the DEC to come up with mandates with no money.
Yeah.
That's great.
At least they gave us 20% of the cost they forced us to bear, which is lovely. But, so we have to vote tonight on this because we have to get it to them by Wednesday, or end of day Wednesday, or beginning of day Thursday. So I'll entertain a motion on this unless there's any more questions on the grant. No? Okay, Councilman Troy with the motion.
Yeah.
In a second, Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. So that just, again, that was already paid for, so this is just cash in the bank then. Going back to Jane with the map. And we're not going to vote because it's still not 100%, but just so you could talk through the edits here.
Right, so everyone's aware, we've obviously had some major conflicts in the zoning map that have come to light over the past year or two. Some of the applicants have come before the town board and asked for zone change lines to correct the situation versus waiting for us to go through the review process. So between Rob and Karen from Assessor and Karen from Rockland County, we've been able to go through all of the town board resolutions through the years and try to fix some of the conflicts, and we're pretty much done. Karen from the county has a few notes she needs to add, so I definitely want to get it before you. I do have a hard copy, which will be easier for you guys to see it. I have it with me. But we're in the home stretch. She does feel at this point she should be able to have everything 100% for next week. So I wanted to present the draft to you guys so you can take a look. And we should have hopefully addressed every town board resolution that we have on record back to the 60s. I believe went down like 62 or something like that. So 2011 was the last time the zoning map was actually updated. And as you're well aware, there have been a number of zone changes since then. So this will bring us up to date, even with the most recent ones that were passed this past year.
Any questions? Okay, great. When we're finished for Tuesday, we'll vote on it today. Is it, Mike, you had a question? Someone else? No, this is just, basically the villages are just marked as villages on this map. It doesn't include their zoning. They have their own separate zoning maps.
That's correct.
But they're noted as a border, essentially, because the village of Piermont, village of Granby.
When you have it available, can we get full-size copies?
Yep.
Very good.
Giant roll of paper.
No way I'm.
Ready for you. It's almost like she expected the question. Okay, moving on, workshopping further things. We will be probably continuing this based on the need for a traffic study. Jim, if I miss anything, please step in, but we stood up and talked to the county and DOT regarding the one-way of that area at the rail crossing, and after talking about it with them, they're on board in theory with one-waying that street, or what parking lot I guess it is technically, but we all agree it would make sense to do a traffic study. So Eamon is going to be taking a look at the costs and trying to see if we could do it under the hourly rate we have contracted. If not, then we'll have to go out to bid on it, but it probably will be a very small cost traffic study. And I think, honestly, if we're talking about the downtown perimeter, it makes sense to do a traffic study down there anyway. So we're not going to be actually voting on this hearing. We may just table it until we get the study back or continue it for a while out. Does that make sense, Rob?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We need that because it comes up.
Okay. So that's the first four things in the workshop are stuff related to that public hearing, which will again be continued or tabled. Then the next thing is setting the calendar for the next year's meetings. Again, every meeting will be a workshop and a town board meeting. It's every other week. Just double check the schedules and make sure you don't have any kids' birthdays or anything on there. before we adopt it. What's that? Okay. So that's the schedule. Then, this is the changing of the building inspector to full-time. We planned that in the budget to go from full-time, from less than full-time, effective January 1st. And then an adjustment in pay for our building department director. And then we're looking at accepting the donation of a memorial tree over on Blue Hill Golf Course in memory of Julie Regan. Resolution to award a bid for the Blue Hill Golf Course Pond Project, which I guess we don't have the full response on yet.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow's opening the bid, okay. Then, appoint Christine Fuller as principal clerk typist for Parks and Rec. We had a retirement. And then Christine Banta is senior records clerk typist in the police department, to a different position, no change in salary. Declare surplus for one Ford Crown Victoria, and that's the old fire inspector car that got replaced with the last bonding. And then approve the traffic study along the Old Middletown Road curve. This is related to something on Traffic Advisory Board. Is there background on this one, Jim or Eamon? Like, was this related to like some accidents, I guess, or a thing before the board?
That's the curve going in by the Rockland Medical Arts Building, right, Jim?
Yes, yeah, it's where the Old Middletown Road makes a 90-degree turn,
Yeah.
coming from South Middletown headed out towards Gilbert Avenue.
Okay.
There's been some issues there with people not making that turn. Most times, it's because of excessive speed.
Right.
We have, over the last 5 years, done everything that we can within the code book to enhance the sight distance, or the sight distance is not bad, but it's just that people are approaching that, not thinking they're going to make a right turn. So, and it's very limited right-of-way. So doing anything,
There was something there the other day, because police had that blocked off, that area. Yesterday, I was
Okay.
going to work, you couldn't go down there because they had a cop car right at the stop sign on top of Orangeburg, and then they had it right by, past the gas station, they had another police officer, so I'm assuming something regarding that.
okay.
Turn came up again.
I'm not aware of that, but usually we meet with the
Yeah,
police.
that was just yesterday.
We'll see the accident report if there was one. So what we're looking for is, and Eamon has agreed that we really need to get a professional engineer to take a look at this and see if it's going to mean reconfiguring the turn, what can be done. Our responsibility is to protect motorists and pedestrians, and then we may need to get some space there to do that. Not really sure. But we need a traffic consultant, somebody that specifically deals with these type of issues.
All right, great. Thank you, Jim.
Has anything been sorted out about 303 and the LED lights being out?
So we've been going back and forth with O&R about that. Amanda, did you get anything back from them about those lights out on 303, the street lights? You can, yeah, sure. It's your first appearance.
So I spoke to them about the lights that are out below Erie, so south of Erie. I
Right.
told them those need to be fixed. Those are pre-existing lights. The ones above Erie are the new tap-ons.
Right.
We're gonna get those within the next few weeks. We couldn't get the timeline from O&R, but basically they have to install secondary transformers.
Okay.
So it's kind of in paperwork land right now.
So did they explain like why they shut off the lights south of where we wanted? Was it a mistake or do we know yet?
Don't think they did that on purpose,
Yeah.
so we're trying to get that fixed.
Okay, but we're on it.
But I'm in
All right.
contact with them, yes.
But yes, it's an O&R issue. I think they did the wrong direction on their power shut off or something.
Yeah, they had them on. and
Yeah, they
then
just
went
turned them off. I got asked about it too, and either way, we're attempting to address it. Someone did the wrong. I think they just flicked the wrong switch, honestly. Like, anything else going on? you folks want to bring up?
I brought this up before,
Yes.
and I think Teresa has brought it up a couple times. When we do violation searches, we need to do something sooner rather than later. We need to do on-site inspections. I was on the phone with one of my clients today regarding the fact that the building department didn't do an on-site inspection. She got a no violation letter, and then she got a violation letter from the same building department weeks later, and she's irate, and I was on the phone with her for an hour today. So we need to institute that, and we need to do it sooner rather than later. Because I've gotten a number of phone calls from attorneys that do business in the town saying, you can't buy a house in Orangetown because they don't do on-site inspections.
Yeah, we talked about this individually, but yeah, I agree. Jane, is there a way we can get a timeline on that? Because I know we've talked repeatedly about
Why would that happen?
when it'll get done.
If you do an outside, they do a records.
They do a record search right now.
Can-
So what tends to happen is that basically they do a record search, shows no violations because no one knows it's a new thing. And then when they put in, another piece of paper that shows it's another bedroom or there's a deck involved, then they realize, oh, now there's a deck. That's a violation. But no violation had been issued because they didn't see it on
So
paper.
who put in the abstract company put in the other paper that said, oh, there's a deck? Like, I'm
No.
wondering how that comes up, I'm just out of curiosity.
Well,
Digital abstracts at times didn't have that stuff in there, even though it was existing.
Right.
well, another
Or
problem
it'll
they
be in a
have
real
is
estate
that,
listing.
Chris hit the nail on the head. There's the Brian Kenny's apartment will look at listings, and then like after the closing, they'll say, oh, based on the listing, we're referring this to the building department, and by the way, based on this listing, you now have a violation on your property.
The timing
After
essentially.
the
Okay.
person has bought the house, an innocent person buys the house and then gets,
So it could come back through.
Back full circle, essentially, once the property transfer
Yeah,
happens, then they
I'm
get
just
the
wondering how
change on
they're
it. Yeah.
notified after.
Other
they did a
paperwork catches
search.
up with it,
Right.
and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, there was a deck there,
and
we didn't
the
know.
violation on this particular, was issued against the current owner, the seller, but it's now my client's problem.
House,
And,
right.
so it is an issue, and
Yep.
you know what, if we're town-friendly people, let's be the town-friendly
So
people.
we had talked about the possibility of contracting with someone on a per basis, or per house basis, and the possibility of having someone hired to do it, because it's a man-hours thing, but I think you would be more preferable to the contracting idea, but I don't know what your research showed or what your thoughts are now, so.
Well, I did ask a retired inspector if he'd be interested in doing it with the knowledge. His certification he actually let lapse, so he'd
Okay.
have to go back through the training. We did speak about the opportunity of having it subcontracted out. I haven't gotten anywhere with that research as of yet. Want to give some perspective here. Year to date, we have one clerk that processes the title searches. She's processed 447 of them. To give you an idea what that means, June 59, July 61, and then we had a little bit of a drop. We average about 40 a month. On top of, remember, I have 2 clerks that work on that side of the department, on top of all the permits and all of that stuff. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about this as a whole, especially Tom. I understand your frustration, but I think the board has to keep in mind that these people do work without following the law, without following the rules.
Not my
Not the
client.
buyers.
In
Not my
general,
client.
No,
Okay,
I gotta
in
say-
general.
I gotta say something, because as a real estate attorney, all real estate attorneys, we're not part investigators, so you get a no violation letter, and then you have to
Yeah.
kind of figure out what's at the house. I get some people do things without
Yeah.
permits and things, but like Tom's pointed out, most buyers are completely.
The problem is that it's coming around
The-
and hitting
the
the person
buyer-
who didn't do the work.
But say the buyers are innocent.
Yes, and the buyer's the ones getting hurt
Right.
under the current situation.
Right, so when the situation comes up and it comes to our attention, we do everything we can to help those people resolve that problem.
Right, but we
Going out that exact day, doing inspections.
The general
Yeah.
understanding, though, is that we need to figure out a way to make it not be a problem.
Right,
So-
but there's a couple of things,
Problem for the seller.
The seller should, or it should be a problem for the seller, yeah,
We're
it should be
okay if
called
it's a
Right.
for this,
problem, but
yeah.
it's gotta be a problem to the right
So-
person.
if I may, there's a couple of things that happen there. If we start sending an inspector out to the sites, what liability does that leave with the town if we don't find a violation, if we don't find something that's a violation of code?
No,
I
there's no
wouldn't-
liability.
Yeah,
I mean,
I wouldn't worry about that.
every
That-
other
that's-
municipality in the county
that's
does
not a
it.
concern.
Town of Clarkstown does it.
And, you
Village
know.
of West Haverstraw.
Clarkstown does it with limitations.
But,
Yeah,
no,
As
and-
I
not-
spoke to the
they're
head
not gonna
building
go in and
inspector.
inspect every floorboard, I
We can
mean.
do the same, but you can.
You can do an external inspection,
Well,
right?
you
I
can
mean,
do an external, you can, I've had it in Clarkstown where if the buyer's attorney insists, we'll do an internal inspection. But it's all about, if every real estate attorney, and Teresa will agree with this, would be more than happy to pay the extra money, whatever it is, if it's an extra 150 to 200 bucks, to do the inspection, to be able to say, listen, they went out, that deck is legal, because they went out and they looked at it and they said, there's a CO on file, it's a legal deck, or that addition's legal, or what have you, as opposed to Orangetown where it's a puzzle. You get
Tom.
the violation search, you get the
Disagree.
CO search, you look at the
Never lets
survey,
me finish talking.
and you think it's all good, and then you find out it's not. And that's the problem with
So-
Orangetown.
Or even if they're told it's illegal, as long as they're told before they sell the house, then it's the
seller's
seller's responsibility.
Okay, I'm going to tell you that there are times where there's been violations in the file for 14 years, and these people, the previous owners, never responded. So it goes multiple directions. And one of the things that the real estate people are doing right now is instead of filing for a title search, they're filing a FOIL and asking for copies of all of the COs instead of doing a formal title search. So if they're relying on something like that, that is a problem.
That is a problem.
Okay, but they've been trying to get a,
They're listing the properties.
yes.
What there is. That's not a municipal search. That's not what the title companies are
But
doing.
the
Right.
title companies are,
But
first of all.
they're trying to beat the
but
$200,
just-
and that's
let's-
become
let's-
more and more
Let's
often.
just, hold on one second. There's no need to have we all agree that, one, it's an issue if a buyer is on the hook for something a seller did wrong. That's a problem. Two, title searches have to occur by the title company at some point. It's not, I'm sure there are real estate agents who are trying to save a penny who are doing foils because they're free. That's irrelevant, though. The point is that we as a town need to find a way so that the pain of the situation is inflicted on the person who chose to go around the law. The only way to do that is to have an on-site. If that means charging an extra 100, 200 bucks per search, if you want the on-site, you could have no on-site or on-site. Extra 100 bucks a search, you get an on-site. We have a part-time person, we send out on an hourly basis. It takes them an hour to do it. I mean,
I mean,
Whatever it
I
is.
can guarantee you, every attorney that does real estate work in Rockland County will request an on-site inspection.
or then not have the option for not on-site. Just raise it by 100, it's all on-site. I don't know, but we need
Or
to.
whatever
We
the
just
cost
need
of the
to-
Yeah.
town, you just.
Yeah.
you
I'm just
put-
I'm just
you
throwing a
put
number
on-
out there.
Put
yeah.
on to someone else.
Just pass it on
Yeah,
to
if
the
I
guy
could
who's
just be
doing it.
heard, I understand what Jane's saying. Certainly from a personnel perspective, you guys will have to work that out, and Jane will have to work that out. But, I've also done, many closings. To me, it doesn't matter, we say, oh, it's somebody's fault, or somebody's trying to pull a fast one, or whatever. Sometimes even the seller doesn't know, or maybe, when they bought it 10 years earlier,
Right.
it didn't happen. So
Right.
to
We
me, it's
have
not
had
about
all
the
that.
Not
blame
even always
game,
the
it's not
seller.
about
It's
that,
some-
it's
sometimes
about
it's,
getting it right. And honestly, I do work up in Suffern as well, and a few years ago, they started the on-site inspections, and it's been very successful because somebody sells their house in 2010, or whenever, 2015, whenever we started in Suffern, an inspector's been in there, they've seen this basement, is it finished, is it not finished, they make note of it. Now, in 2022, when somebody all of a sudden is renting out that basement, we know that when we were there in 15.
It wasn't like
It
that.
wasn't like that.
It's a
So
fresh start,
it-
basically, on the
Frankly,
property, yeah.
it's a good baseline to get that going. So, I wouldn't shy away from it. I would say it's something we should be doing.
Here's what I'm going to propose as an idea, and since I don't know that there is a company that does it, let's forget that for a second, that we come up with a number of hours that this would take someone to do. We authorize an increase in the budget line for part-time hours to do that, bring on someone part-time, like this guy you said, to do it, assuming it's a part-time job, and then do the math on what that is and charge that per hour for fee or per thing. If it takes a half hour to do per inspection, and I don't know any of these numbers, I'll give you examples. If it takes an hour to do per inspection,
Probably closer to 3.
all right, so
Yeah, I
three,
would say 3
Yeah.
hours.
3 hours per
times
inspection
447, you got a
I
full-time
had,
person.
I had
Right.
figured it out a couple of months
Tell you
back.
right
Okay,
and
so there,
it
it's
was
3 hours, it's
Minimum
full-time
20
person.
hours, and that's when we were slower. Obviously, I know the real estate market obviously had another big boom, so these numbers next year may not represent reality.
Of course.
But it was about 20 hours a week.
Take a running average of the number of, take a running average for the last 5 years of the number of these searches that have occurred. Multiply that by the number of hours it would take to make sure we can get with one full-time person. Then divide it by the number of average searches per year, and that's how much we charge per search.
447, yeah.
Yeah, and
So
again,
if it's one additional salary, call it, let's say $100,000 all in on benefits and
I would even
everything,
make it more.
divide that by the
On-site
447
search,
searches,
300.
and that's how much we charge per search, times plus 10% for just in case. You know?
Well, if you had 447 and you charge 250, that's 111,000.
There you go, 250 per, right?
And
And then we charge what right
When you're
now?
spending, when you're spending $500,000 purchasing a house, 250 is nothing.
What do
An
we charge
on-site
already?
inspection is,
We charge 2 already, so that we have to put additional.
No,
also.
you would put you would put another 250.
Another 250.
another
yeah.
250.
Then you price us out.
But,
Maybe
but
it's
you're,
not
you're
250, maybe it's
pricing,
200,
how are you
maybe it's-
pricing this out if you're looking to make,
The other towns, or whatever.
yeah, Clarkstown does just the exterior, and they think it's 250.
Total.
Right, and they only look at structures that may have been built illegally. And that,
They look at everyone.
well, yeah, but that's structures.
So maybe we
That's
make it,
considered
we don't,
structure.
maybe we eat some of it on the initial cost. It's already 250, you said? It's already 2.
We
Right
are
now,
at-
it's 2.
We are at 2.
So instead of making an additional.
Clarkstown's at 250 to do the exterior.
Just FYI, it's roughly 25 hours a week based on 440.
Okay, so it's not even a full-time person
So
then.
you're less than full.
It's a less than full-time employee.
Right, I
so
said
make
about
it,
20.
make
yeah.
it 275,
Yeah.
so it's 75, and that would cover it, basically.
Yeah,
Does this include inside the house or no?
You
this
could,
would be for
w- w-
inside.
well, I'd say inside would be more.
Yeah, I think if we're comparing to Clarkstown,
I should be included in it because I can tell you.
then go to 3. I know.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
I'm worried
What-
about the
what,
exposure.
what you gotta realize is though, that has to be negotiated between the attorneys. Like,
Yeah, they have to agree to do that.
You can't just say, I want an inside inspection.
So-
You already had it inspected, you already raised issues. You're not gonna be able to say, I want an inside, on-site inspection in someone else's house.
If you
You
go
don't get that
inside,
option.
I think that opens us up to, really opens us up, because
Well,
then you're
if-
looking at fire,
Only,
I don't think,
but-
but how does it open us
That
up?
doesn't
Because-
open us
but-
to liability, it opens up other people to
No, we
problems.
don't, the town doesn't get a liability. Like, we don't get a liability
There's not a
because.
concern for the town.
If someone gets in a car accident because they were speeding and the police didn't pull them over, even though it was parked right there, the cop can't get sued. It's just chose not to pull them over. It's the same principle. If you can miss an inspection and the town doesn't incur obligation liability on
See,
it.
gotta
I
look at
think
that
we should
further.
do
I
something where it's
disagree.
275 for
No, it's just a-
outside, 500 for,
I mean,
You have
know,
immunity. Do we have
you have
immunity?
a level of an immunity. It's,
add another 225.
to say like you don't want to, you
And
know,
that's a
you
choice.
don't
No,
like
I'm
an.
not saying-
And that would have
If
to, that would have to
Some
be
municipalities
negotiated in
do
the
inside
contract.
inspections. I think
I
what we're
would have it
talking
in
about
every
is.
contract I signed in
Everyone's
Orangetown
talking
from
like
now
two
on. The
Yeah.
ability,
I think you should do something like 275 for the outside and the search,
Yeah.
the regular file search, and then 500 if you want everything.
Yeah, we can
Outside,
offer the
inside,
service
and file.
and then it's more.
And you got a choice.
But it's not a liability issue, am I right, Rob?
Right, but it doesn't have to be decided tonight, right? In terms of inside, I
gotta
think
work
what
on that.
Teresa was, it's like saying if you went and saw something, maybe, sometimes people make mistakes. That's why we have insurance, that's why we have, you know, I mean, you don't want to not do things just to not, you know.
I didn't say that, but Chris, we spoke about this. We should be very specific
Right.
in
We
that
should list
request,
what we're looking at.
This is what we're
Yes.
looking at, because
Absolutely.
as a trained building inspector that's certified by the state, if you go someplace and you observe something and you do not report it, you are liable.
So.
Right, we're saying report it. We're
I-
saying
Right,
that.
but
I
we
didn't
need
say
to
not report it. If
No.
you go and see something,
You
you
have to
report it. That's why you're going.
But I agree, Jane.
Understand,
No,
but
I agree what you're saying is that when we implement it, it needs to be, an
Very
exterior search
specific.
includes looking at this, an interior search includes looking at this. That way you're not just looking at a whole, you know, every little thing under every rug. I get it. That makes sense, but that has to be drawn up as to what an interior would include and what exterior includes. So when someone pays for it, they know what they're paying for.
I'm gonna give,
But they would have to agree to it.
Chris, I understand what Jane's saying, because like, our building department does not look at electrical work.
Example,
So
good
that would
example.
have to be excluded.
Excluded
Yes.
The
unless-
service
exactly.
of the panel is not up to date or up to, that
Fire
would have to be
alarms, all that.
excluded. So there
Right,
should
so
be
there'd be a
some
list of things that I
excluded.
agree completely with
Well,
that, yes.
I mean, your typical exterior inspection would look for, A, is there a legal deck?
Mm-hmm.
B, is there a pool that, shed, pool,
More windows than there used
deck,
to be.
or addition
Yeah.
to the structure? Those are the four things that you would be able to see on an exterior inspection. Hot
What about
tub,
the structural integrity of the deck? The deck's 30 years old. It was built illegally 30 years ago.
Well,
You
then they have
they-
to, but
they
they
would
have
have
to
to bring it
file
to
and bring it
Again,
into
if
code.
something is missed during that inspection and the report does not include it, that is all my concern. I'm just expressing that concern. I don't want to open the town up to some type of
But if it-
liability of something not.
If
in-
a town,
But Rob and I
if
can
a-
work that out.
If our
It's
building
fine.
inspector is there to inspect a deck, he issues a violation for an unpermitted deck, then they have to get it to code before they sell the
I'm
house.
sorry, I meant to say a deck that was legal 30 years ago.
If it was legal 30 years ago
You have
and
wear
and he
and tear
sees
on
it,
it. Now, if the inspector doesn't go on the deck and the deck is somewhat pulling away from the house, that's all.
I would say you'd have to limit it to say that there are no violations because they all had COs when they're issued,
all permits are-
but we're
are
not giving
permits,
any guarantee as to their structural integrity at this
Yeah,
point.
Right.
in
it's
time.
more
That's
about
what
writing
I'm
the right
asking is
caveat
that-
legalese on it
set
than
the
it is
limit.
about
Because,
not doing
I
it.
mean, they had their,
This is a home inspection. so
yes,
You're not doing a home
Yeah.
inspection.
And even they even have waivers of liability. Home inspections don't take on liability, you know?
they are. They,
In
w-
one case, there was a finished basement that they did not get a CO, but there were no violations. So when we asked them, well, we need the COs, obviously, for closing and everything, then they went to go get the COs and, oh, oops, we don't actually have COs.
Right.
And then it became a whole to-do. But if there was an inspection by the building department inside the house before all this, and I understand, agree upon and put it in the contract, that's fine. But at least then, we would have known well in advance instead of creating a whole, problem as I'm trying to close on the house.
All right, so let's
Yeah,
let's do the following. If you could, Jane, for the next meeting, so we can get this done for next year, put in some resolutions for fee structure change,
Doesn't have to be for next week, but
you know,
maybe for the.
maybe for
beginning.
January, or you get it for next week.
Are you sliding me a break on that one?
I'm just saying, if you can get it for next week, it'd be nice, but if not, that's fine. I guess Paul's gonna be taking it easy on
The
you.
holidays are coming.
They're coming after the meeting. The holidays are after the meeting, Paul. What? Anyway, if you could try for next meeting, and if you don't get it, then that's fine. I won't be upset. But we need a resolution for creating a less than full-time position for a building inspector. We need a resolution to change the fee structure. And we also need to see at least, I don't know if we have to approve the on-site inspection stuff, that it's gonna be on-site. We need to, the fee would be for an on-site inspection when you approve the fee table, so.
Exterior only and interior.
Two
So
options.
you'll have two.
Exterior only and interior. One at call it 3, and then one at 5.
Yeah,
Sounds about right based on how long it takes, so.
I would also, which I know I'm just adding another layer, that's why I gave you a little more time. See if we could do a
alright.
public or private partnership where you have an independent company come in and possibly do it.
Okay, so,
I know it's done in other towns. I don't
Right,
know
and
if
Chris and I had spoken
It
about
isn't done in
that.
Rockland, but it is done in Westchester and a few towns.
all right, so if you happen to know what those towns are, if you could let Jane know an example one, so she could reach out, because that's another option too, instead of taking on a salary, which I think we'd all prefer. So, the non-salary one, so.
Well, it's something we could possibly even put out an RFP for,
We could, yes,
and
but we need to see
so
that
that would
there's
be a
someone
simple
doing it.
RFP to write.
If there's someone doing it, it makes it a lot easier, because then they've done it before, and we need to write an RFP possibly, so.
Okay.
If we could do that, great, if not, then,
Bert doing?
so. And then the goal would then be to have either a contracted thing in January or a position authorized to be created in January. And now I understand why you gave her more time. That's fair. Yeah, but we'll follow up. But I think it has to get done, and we won't have the paper-only searches anymore then. That won't be an option, because it's just causing trouble.
Yep.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom.
Good.
Good
Thank
point. Glad we brought that to a head. Anything else, gentlemen? No, we're good? Oh, there was an additional thing here. No, that's just from the public hearing. Okay. So we're going to adjourn. Obviously, of course, we're going to adjourn in memory of our former president, George H.W. Bush, who passed away. Is there anyone else that we want to adjourn in memory of that that you guys are tracking? No?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to offer that we move to executive session to discuss land sales and personnel and also contracts, and then immediately thereafter adjourn in memory of former President George H.W. Bush. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Divney, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great, thank you, everyone.